Hello, 7th grade, and welcome to Lesson 5-4 on multiplying and dividing fractions. In tonight's lesson, we have two objectives. First, you will be able to multiply fractions, and secondly, you will be able to divide fractions. Alright, so this might be a good place to warm up for tonight first. Again, write each mixed number as an improper fraction. Well, I showed that to you the last lesson. You multiply the denominator by the whole and then add in whatever's in the numerator. So 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7, 7/3. Go ahead and do 2 and 3 for me. And then when you're all done, just come back and check your answers. So find some spare place or some open place on your notes and solve those two. So go ahead, do that now. All right, let's check that work. Well, 10 times 3 is 30, plus 3 is 33, so 33 tenths. And here we have 1 and 4 ninths. Well, 9 times 1 is 9, plus 4 is 13, so we have 13 ninths. You're going to use that in the second objective tonight. Now first, however, we're going to look at how to multiply fractions. And to multiply fractions, all right, what you do is you first multiply together the numerators. And then you multiply the denominators. And when you're all done, just make sure it's written in simplest form. It's really that easy. So, multiply together the numerators. 2 times 5 is 10. 3 times 7 is 21. So I take a look and I decide, is there a number that goes into both? Well, 10, our factors are 1, 2, 5, and 10. 21, the factors are 1, 3, 7, and 21. That's its simplest form, 10 21s, or 10 21st. So I would let's do 8 together, and we'll go from there. Again, we have 2/5 times 1/3. Whenever you have a number and then the fraction on the outside, it still means to multiply. So you multiply them. 2 times 1 is 2. 5 times 3 is 15. 2/15. And let's see. Go ahead and do B now. We have -5/6, and then we're timesing it by 2/3. And again, this negative sign I assign to that 5. So we have -5 over +6. There's a reason I'm having you do it that way. So go ahead, pause me now. All right, for B, -5 times 2 is -10. Then 6 times 3 is 18. All right, now this one can be simplified. I know that 2 goes into both. So -10 divided by 2 is -5. 18 divided by 2 is 9, -5 ninths. Now, the reason you can't make both of these negative is if I had -5 and then a -6, two negatives make a positive. So that would turn that into a +5/6, and it's not. So whenever you multiply or divide with negative numbers, assign that negative sign to the numerator. All right? Now, that's what you do. However, when there's numbers you have in common, so when you have a numerator and a denominator with common factors, you can simplify before multiplying. So instead of simplifying at the end, you could simplify before you begin. So first, I would just show you how we normally solve it. 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 3 is 12. Oh, well, I see there's a factor of 6 in each. So 6 divided by 6 is 1. 12 divided by 6 is 2. I get 1/2. It's perfectly all right to solve it that way. Or you could simplify before you begin. So 3/4 times 2/3. And how you do this is you look for the numbers that are across from each other. So you look at these 3's, and then you look at these numbers. All right, and you see, are there factors they have in common? So for example, I'm just going to rewrite it down here so I can solve it. Oops, 3/4 times 2/3. Well, I look at the 3's that are across from each other. 3's, well, they both have 3's in common, so those turn into 1's. Here, I have a 4 and 2. Well, they both have a factor of 2 in common. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Now I can multiply. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 1 is 2. 1/2. So again, either way you solve this, it would work just fine. And again, we could do B the same way. 5W times 13W over 17. Well, 5 and 17 have nothing in common, but 13W and W do. They both have a factor of W. So I take that out. W divided by W is 1, and W divided by W is 1, and I multiply. 5 times 13 is 65. And then 1 times 17 is 17. You get 65/17. There we go. So again, now we're moving to mixed numbers. So we talked about how you can multiply fractions by either multiplying at the beginning and then simplifying at the end, or simplifying right away, then multiplying. Now when you multiply mixed numbers, first you have to write them as improper fractions. That way you can multiply them like we have been. So Peach's desktop is a rectangle that's 3.5 feet long and 1.5 feet wide. What is the area of her desktop? Now I'm going to show you the right way to do this and the wrong way. First, we need to switch 3.5 to an improper fraction. And this is what we did for the warm-up. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So 7 halves. And we're going to times this by its width, 1 1/2. Again, 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. 3 halves. And I multiply. 7 times 3 is 21. 2 times 2 is 4. I get 21/4. But again, that doesn't tell me much about the area, so I should probably simplify it out. 4 goes into 21 5 times, and I'm left with 1/4. So the area of her desk is 5 1/4 feet. That would be your answer. Now, in the past, I've seen people who want to just multiply the numerators, the whole numbers, and then they multiply together the fractions. So they'll do 3 times 1, then they'll do 1/2 times 1/2. Well, 3 times 1 is 3, 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 2. So they say, oh, this is 3 1/4. Well, if you take a look, 3 1/4 feet versus 5 1/4 feet, you do not get the same answer. So you cannot do it that way. You must switch it to an improper fraction and multiply. Otherwise, you will not get the correct answer. So here we have this one that you're going to do all on your own. The area of Golden Gate Park in San Francisco can be estimated using a rectangle 3 2/5 miles long and 1/2 mile wide. What's the approximate area of Golden Gate Park? Well, go ahead and solve this one. And so pause me now. All right, so let's solve it. In order to talk about area, we always multiply the length times the width. So we know we're going to have to multiply 3 2/5 times 1/2. And both of these are miles. But unfortunately, we have one fraction and then one mixed number. So first we have to switch that mixed number. So I'm going to switch this. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2 is 17. So 17/5 times 1/2. And I multiply. 17 times 1 is 17. 5 times 2 is 10. So I get 17/10 miles, which again doesn't tell you much, so we need to simplify it. And let's see, 10 goes into 17 once, and I'm left with 7/10. So I have 1 7/10 miles squared, really. The area should be squared, so I should go back to that last problem and square it. There we go. Whenever you're talking about area, your answer should be squared, or miles squared, because miles times miles is miles squared. There we go. All right, so we talked about how to multiply fractions. Now we need to divide rational numbers. And how you do this is, with my hint below, multiply the numbers using the reciprocal. All right, because if you use the inverse property of multiplication, that's in this pink box here, the product of a non-zero rational number and its multiplicative inverse is 1. When we talk about the multiplicative inverse, that just means the reciprocal. So if you flip the numerator and denominator around, that's what you have. So 2, if you flip 2 over 1, well, you have 1 over 2. All right, and same works for algebra. If you have a over 1, well, you'd have 1 over a. And again, you can multiply those together and you get 1. So here we have 3/5 divided by 7/10. How you do this is leave the first fraction alone. All right, then you change the division to a multiplication and you flip the second one. So here I'm going to flip 7/10 using the reciprocal of 10/7. And I can multiply. 3 times 10 is 30. 5 times 7 is 35. Well, now I need to simplify it. I know 5 goes into both, and I get 6/7. That's my answer. All right, now we can do B. We have 27 over 8Q, and again, we change the divided to multiply, and we flip the second. 4Q over 9. All right, on this one, I think I'm going to try to simplify before I multiply, because I have some big numbers here. Now, looking across from each other, I have a 9 and 27. Well, I know 9 goes into both. So 9 divided by 9 is 1. 27 divided by 9 is 3. Then I have these ones. I have 4 and an 8. Well, I know 4 goes into both. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Then, we have factors of q in common, so I can cross those out, because q divided by q is 1, and here q divided by a q is 1. Then I can multiply. 3 times 1 is 3, and then 2 times 1 is 2. I get 3 halves, or 1 1/2. All right, now finally we have one with mixed numbers. This is going to work the same way that it did when we multiplied with mixed numbers. First, you need to write them improper. So write them as improper fractions. Then you multiply by the reciprocal. So just like we've been doing with dividing, and then you solve. So 4 1/2 turns into 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. Oops. So I'm rewriting the problem first. So I have 9 halves divided by a negative. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 3 is 27/8. There we go. Now, I need to multiply by the reciprocal. So I write 9 halves the same. Dividing turns to multiply. And here, I'm going to have negative 8/27. So I flipped those around. And I can multiply. Again, I could simplify before I do, but maybe this time I won't. And I'm going to assign that negative sign to that 8. That way, I remember that only one of those numbers are negative. 9 times negative 8 is negative 72. 2 times 27 is 54. Now taking a look, I know I need to simplify it, and 2 goes into both. So let's see. Negative 72 divided by 2 is negative 36. And then 54 divided by 2 is, let's see, 27. Then let's see. I have negative 36/27, which can be simplified. I know 9 goes into both of those. Negative 36 divided by 9 is negative 4. 27 divided by 9 is 3. I get negative 4/3, or negative 1 1/3. Again, if you divide that out, 4 over 3, 3 goes in there once, and that leaves me with a fraction of 1/3. So negative 1/3. Usually, if they started as a mixed number, they want your answer written as a mixed number as well. So that is your lesson for tonight. Tonight, we looked at how to multiply and divide fractions. I hope you have a great night, and I will see you tomorrow morning.